What is up, beautiful people? It's your girl, Miss Sierra Cherie, and thank you guys so much for joining me today. Today, I just wanted to talk to you guys about the church, and so I'm going to title today, I guess, Dear Church People. The reason being is because over the past couple of weeks in our nation, in the world, we have been in this conversation about race and racism. And in that, I have learned so much, but I have also seen so much. And not only seen so much within my own life, but also as a person of faith and being in different environments, whether working in ministry and working in not ministry, like entertainment industry, other things like that. I have seen things, been a part of things, heard some things, and I just kind of wanted to share kind of my perspective and just kind of maybe pique your interest, and maybe you'll be a little bit curious and more observant to what you have seen and what you have heard. And so with that being said, I just kind of want to pique your interest on what is happening in our nation. A man named George Floyd was an innocent black man, and he was murdered in the hands of police, and it was filmed and it was distributed all over the world. And because of that, it has erupted a civil rights movement. Not that one wasn't already happening, not that a conversation wasn't already happening. I like to call it like a mighty conversation was happening, but now it has been magnified. And it has started protests and movements literally across the world. This is the largest civil rights movement ever in the history, ever, of humanity. And so with that being said, the time that we are in, I just kind of wanted to just address some things and kind of make you just think a little bit as you move forward in your life, in the spaces that you're going to be in the organizations that you affiliate yourself with, but also in the church world. So with that being said, I have been making some deep observations as well as recognizing a lot of silence in these spaces. Definitely from companies and organizations that like I've worked with or worked for, but also with the church. I've definitely seen the church be silent, and I've also definitely seen the church be vocal. And so whatever side that you fall on, whether it's a church for you that you belong to or call yourself like a person of faith, or whether it's a company or an organization that you work for, work with, and you really believe in that, I just kind of want to help to clarify the lens in which you are seeing. So what I have seen from churches across the board is some churches have spoken out against racism, and they have taken a stand, and they have said that it is wrong. They have said that it is a sin, and they have been vocal about it. Also, on the other hand, I've also seen churches become silent, and that's so incredibly dangerous and so incredibly telling about that church or organization. Their silence, or when they do choose to speak, what they are speaking, or the time in which they are speaking. And I just want to encourage and invite everyone that is listening to this, watching this, someone maybe shared this video with you. I want to just encourage you just to take a little look, a deeper look into what is happening with the organizations and the churches that you are affiliating yourself with. As a person of faith, as a Christian, we are definitely told to love everyone, to love your neighbor, love your enemies. Like, I think people have heard that before within the church world, but what I am seeing as a Black woman, as a woman that's not only worked in ministry, but has served in ministry for many years, I have seen a silence. I have seen such a silence, such a lack of recognition of what their community of Black people are going through. There's just silence. There's nothing to be said. And that is incredibly telling of the organization, but it's also incredibly telling to those individuals like myself that belong to that community when we see an organization such as like a church being silent about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not anti-church. Do not hear that. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying, for those that do belong to a church and go to a church and are a person of color, and in this moment, in this time, in history right now, to have them be so silent about your life and what is happening to people that look like you, that is very dangerous. And I want you to just maybe take a look, take a step back, just reevaluate if that is a community that you want to continue to belong to. The reason being is because what is happening right now is not something that is new to people of color. It is not new to us. This is not something that we've never heard of. This is something that we live with constantly, all the time. The difference is we are in a time in history right now where so many people are able to see it and talk about it and kind of have a conversation around it at the same time. And so it's magnified and multiplied. And it's so important that we, as people of color, but also people that belong to the church, whether you're a person of color or not, that you reevaluate the organizations in which you belong to. Some of the things that I was looking forward to or for were like posts of acknowledgement, a place of support, a place of like, we see you, we hear you, we stand with you. But instead I heard silence. And in that silence, I took it upon myself to reach out and say something that I'm disappointed about that silence, and that we hear the silence that is happening. At this point, for someone to remain silent about this, to be afraid to talk about it, when people in your congregation, people on your staff, people on your Instagram feed that you post about, whatever, are actually walking through this reality all the time, and now it's something that you are coming across for the first time, or maybe it's like magnified at this, it's magnified to you, and now it's something that you're afraid to talk about. Like, no, we need you. Like, we need you to step up, and we hear, but at the same time, like, we hear your silence. And with services getting ready to happen, I just want to encourage you guys and urge you guys to listen closely to what is being spoken. I think it is so important to listen very closely to what is being spoken. Do they address this issue? Do they talk about George Floyd? Do they talk about the murder of innocent black people at the hands of police? Do they talk about that? Do they address that? Do they address racism? Do they call it racism? It is very important to be listening, especially right now. This is such a crucial time. And if they're not addressing it, I think you might want to reevaluate if that is maybe a place that you want to continue to belong to or be a part of. You matter. Your life matters. Black lives matter. And if an organization, if a church, if a company, if a store, whatever, cannot and refuses to address that your voice matters, is that a space in which you want to continue to invest in? Truly. Some might even have black people on staff or people of color on staff. Some of them might have people of color on their worship team. Some of them might even have pictures of people of color. But even if they do and they still don't address it, I think it's worth reconsidering if that is a company or organization that you want to continue to stand by. Because if they don't want to address racism and call it what it is that a room in which you want to continue to occupy and feel safe in and grow with? Like, is that really? Is that respecting you as a person? Is that respecting the cries of your community? It isn't. It isn't. And being scared is not a reason to remain silent. This is not the time to be silent. We are supposed to be the church. We are supposed to come in and speak and speak and not be afraid. We are supposed to love, and we are supposed to show up for those and stand in the gaps for those that are hurting or are experiencing this version of life that you might not experience. I heard a lot of times in churches and from like ministry, where you spend your time, talents, treasures is very telling of who you are. And so who you are / what you believe in. And if the organization or church is not talking during this time, is not supporting during this time, people of color's life, I think you might want to reevaluate that kind of church. If we are to be believers and to follow the Bible and to really read that and let that read us. And what I mean by that is like it comes in and transforms our life, but it's not transforming our life enough to act on behalf of those that are constantly experiencing a whole different level of life, a quality of life that's not that is completely unacceptable and dying at the hands of people that are supposed to protect them, like, I think it's time to reevaluate. Are they addressing it or are they not? Are they quoting Martin Luther King and speeches that he's done? Are they showing clips of movies, peace period movies about racism? Or are they actually talking about the racism that exists currently, that is happening currently, that is a conversation currently? I think that is also very telling. It's in a way showing like racism is something that happened back then and it doesn't happen now. And as a Black woman with real life lived experiences, I can tell you that racism is still happening and is still real today, even if you don't want to believe what you are seeing online or in the news about people like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Like, it is happening. It is happening. It is real. It is ugly. It is vicious. It is nasty. But if we as a church and a community of believers are not talking about that, not addressing that, then we are a part of that problem. We are not a part of the solution when we remain silent. Like, we're not. It's time to take a stand. It is time to say and continue saying and continue having the conversations about racism, calling it what it is, calling it for the different ways that it shows up and it adapts and transforms, as well as doing the intentional hard work of being anti-racist. So it's not enough to not be racist. We have to do the intentional work of being anti-racist. I love that quote from Angela Davis. Like, I think that is completely brilliant. It's not enough to be like, I'm not racist because I have a Black friend, or I go to a church and I go to church that has Black people, or they're Black people that I've invited over, or I have Black coworkers. Like, that's not enough. I can tell you as a person that has been in many rooms where people did not look like me, just because we were in the same room, I didn't feel like I was supported by that. I also want to make a clear distinction between diversity and inclusion. So diversity is a picture of a picture of people of different backgrounds. It's just a picture. It's a picture of maybe like, oh, look, we do have like a Black person on the worship team, or, oh, look, we do have an Asian person in this Instagram photo, or look, we do have a Hispanic person on staff. Like, that's diversity. It's not actually diverse. It's just what you call it. It's just, to me, diversity is just like PR. It's what it looks like. It's what it sounds like. Inclusion and inclusivity is when people of different backgrounds and ethnicities get to come and work and be able to see themselves truly and have their voice heard and taken into account, and their background and their experience and their education taken into account, and not taken into account just to be a token. So oftentimes, if you look at whether it's like your favorite clothing store, whether it is like images of a restaurant that you like to go out to eat at, like their images that they posted of people, whether it's like vacation sites, whether it is your church, oftentimes what you will see is tokenism happening. Tokenism is where you take a person of color and you stick them in the majority of non-people of color. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. It may be a little redundant, but if you are a non-person of color, we'll just say a white person. If you're a white person in a room full of Asians, all Asians and one white person, would you call that room diverse? No. If you were a white person in a room full of all Native American people, would you call that room diverse? So, therefore, when you see maybe one Black person in a room full of all people, at that same time, do not consider that room diverse. Consider that as what it is, which is tokenism, where we aren't all white people or non-people of color, and we have one person of color, and therefore it's diverse. Like, we did it, we're making the big steps, like, we're doing it, we're including them. That's not it. That's not it. Inclusivity means you get to bring people of color get to bring their experiences and their education and their expertise and their background and their history and their culture to the room, to the table, and have it being taken seriously and in account, not just for diversity hires or diversity projects or diversity campaigns, but for the company and organization as a whole. That is so important. And so while we are listening to our leaders and we are hearing conversations that either aren't happening or the ones that are happening, be listening. Have your ears open. Be intentional to really listen to the words that they are saying, to the action steps that they are trying to make. If all they are saying is to pray, that is not enough. Prayer works. It does. But also doing the work inside of ourselves and being a voice and an ally and speaking out also works as well. And so if all we are doing is praying, and if all we are encouraged or led to do is pray, that is not enough. It isn't. It is not enough if all you do is pray, but yet you don't have the tough conversations with yourself or with your family or the people in which you influence. It's not enough if all you do is pray, but you go to work and you hear things that you know is wrong and they are like racist words that are being spoken, but all you do is pray and you don't say anything. That's wrong. Like, that is wrong. And that is not enough. And that is not enough to just bring about change. Don't get me wrong. I think prayer works. I think if the only thing that we are doing is praying, then we are doing ourselves a disservice, and we are doing the people of color a complete disservice of not showing up and supporting them. It's simple. Do the work within ourselves and within the circles around us to make sure that that is the direction and the kind of people and the kind of believers that we really are. To really taking our faith, putting it on, letting it fill us from the inside out, transforming us from the inside out, transforming our minds, renewing our minds from the inside out. Like, that is what you want. That is the kind of direction that you should be looking for. A couple things I want to leave you with. One, be listening. Be intentionally listening to the leaders and what they are saying and speaking about in this moment. If they are not addressing it, I think it's time to maybe reevaluate and reassess being a part of that community. Listen. Seeing their action steps. What are the action steps in which they are leading you to? Or is it only just praying, or is it doing the work of being anti-racist? I think 3, having the tough conversations, like with those organizations that you belong to. Like for me, I wanted to use my level of influence, my relationships, whatever, and let the organization know, like, hey, you guys are remaining silent. That is incredibly heartbreaking to not only myself, but other people of color. Like, we are here, and you want us to be seen. You want us to be a part of your campaigns and like photo shoots and on stage or working on this campaign, but yet in this moment you remain silent. You don't stand for us. You don't stand with us. And in that silence, we know what you're standing for. And so take with that what you will. But I want to encourage you to just be listening, look for action steps, and then reevaluate for yourself if that is the space in which you feel like you can truly be yourself, you can truly bring yourself, and you can find community and love God at the same time. Before I go, I want to leave you with a quote that a friend of mine said that I thought was super good. A friend of mine wrote, "Having people of color on your worship team or on your Instagram feed and bringing them in as a guest speaker does not check the box of being anti-racist." His name is Jacob Adirapu, and I thought that was brilliant that he wrote that, because honestly, if we aren't taking responsibility within ourselves and doing that work of intentionally being anti-racist, then I hate to break it to you, but not going to be a part of the solution. You are not going to be an ally. You are not going to be someone that can adequately advocate or partner with those that are really hurting or part of this community that wants to see change happen. So it's really important that you show up for your people, show up for your community, but you also listen, you act, and you take responsibility. We need you. We need you. Let them know that you want to hear them say that they are against racism and that they are anti-racist, and that addressing racism as a sin completely. I hope that this helps. I hope that this sets someone free. I hope that this encourages conversation. I hope that this encourages dialogue, whatever. Let me know in the comments below. Yeah, it's a tough conversation. Being afraid to have the conversation and still remaining to not have the conversation is privilege. You have a voice. You have influence. You don't need a microphone and you don't need a stage to have a voice or have influence. You know people. You have family, you have friends, you have coworkers, you hear conversations, you're on Zoom calls, you're in text messages and group chats. Like, you see and reach rooms that I don't see and reach, in the same way that I am in rooms and I am reaching people that you might not be connected to. It's important that you do the work as well. It's important that you are empowered by taking it upon yourself to educate yourself, to watch different shows or movies, to read different books, to watch different podcasts. It is so important. We need you during this time. We don't need your silence. Like, your silence is deafening. When you educate and empower yourself, with that new knowledge and more knowledge that you have, you're able to be in conversations and communicate that with someone else and help them maybe see something that they didn't see. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Leave me a comment below, send me a DM. I'm always here to have and be a part of thoughtful conversations about how to become anti-racist and how to love Jesus at the same time. All right, bye.